Hey, Pete Colasano here with PeteColasano.com. Today is the third and final installment on our series called The Transformation of the F Word. And today's F word that we'll be transforming is fear. We're going to transform the word fear into freedom. So how do we transform fear into freedom? Very simply, we have to face the fear directly. We have to face it head on. So it's a very simple process. But what's simple is not always easy, as we know very well. Anybody who's ever tried to quit smoking cigarettes, it's a very simple thing. You just don't smoke cigarettes anymore. But it's not necessarily easy. And that's the same thing with facing your fears. It can be very difficult. If you had a fear of dogs, or if you had a fear of heights, there are things that you don't necessarily want to face. You don't want to deal with those things. But to regain your freedom from them, you do have to face them head on. Now, if you're afraid of dogs, it's a fairly simple process. You don't have to go after a nasty, rabid dog. You can find a friendly dog. I have one. And you can start petting that dog. And slowly but surely, little bit by little bit, more and more, face that fear, deal with the dog, and lose the fear and gain your freedom back. You could do that with any fear that we have. Now, what's interesting is fears like dogs or snakes or heights are not really that vital in your life. If you have those fears, they're not going to stop you from being successful necessarily. But one fear that I find fascinating, and I see with students that I work with, but you even see it more with adults, and it's so much more insidious, and it's a fear of success. And nobody would ever admit that they have a fear of success, and they might not even know that they have a fear of success. But you can see them kind of secretly sabotaging themselves all the time. They start an idea or start something new, get about halfway, and then find reasons not to do it anymore. And the reason for that, most of the time, we can't say all the time, but the reason for that most of the time is because as soon as you start having some successes, or you start to see some progress towards something, the expectations change. The expectations obviously start to go up. And higher expectations can be kind of a bitch to deal with. All right, we like having those expectations low sometimes because they're much more easily reached. And then others aren't expecting more from us. So one of the things you could do with that is to find small successes, to follow through on something smaller, and then see and recognize how that feels. And even though, yes, expectations may be raised a little bit, that's okay. It feels good to have made that success, and you know that you can do the next thing. So what we did today is we transformed fear into freedom. Next time you find yourself in a situation where you're like, this is just not for me, try it anyway. It might be something new that you want to try to eat. And you're like, I don't like that. You know what? Give it a try. What's the worst thing that can happen? You don't like it and you end up spitting it out. Big deal. Okay? But it's the idea of facing that fear and finding that it really wasn't as bad as you thought it was. And now you're no longer confined by this debilitating thing that's holding you back all the time. And I bet suddenly you would see new opportunities open up all around you. So that's the final F word that we transformed. Just looking back, we transformed frustration into fascination. We transformed fear into freedom. And we transformed failure into feedback. And like I said, you're not going to be able to do these three things all of the time, but if you can start to do them some of the time, even half the time or a quarter of the time, I think you'll see massive, massive improvements. And more importantly, if you don't want to do it yourself, if you have children or you're a coach or a teacher, you should try to instill these things in them, especially at a younger age. It'll be so much easier for them to learn to get over fears if they do it at a younger age than trying to do it at an older age. If they can learn how to deal with their frustrations at a younger age instead of trying to unlearn those things at an older age. It'd be better if they learned to look at failures as feedback as opposed to something that's final, that they can't overcome. So let's try to instill those things in kids, and frankly, one of the best ways to do that is to start working on it ourselves. So for PeteColasano.com, I am Pete Colasano. That is the transformation of the F word. I hope you enjoyed it, and keep your eyes out for new videos coming soon.